Hi, this is Thom Matthews from Return of the Living Dead and Friday the 13th. And you're listening to Pop Culture with Pat.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. On today's show, I have special guest Thom Matthews, who you know from Return of the Living Dead, Parts 1 and 2, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives, as well as a number of other roles. Thank you for coming on the show, Thom.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
Now, Return of the Living Dead, which is one of my favorite horror films, growing up. That was one of your first roles in the horror genre. Can you talk about how you first heard about the film and how you got the role and just the overall experience on that project?
Yeah, I got the script. Actually, I got the sides. Those are the sides for Freddy to read for Freddy. So I studied those, went in, gave an audition, and it's pretty hardcore stuff. A lot of emotional stuff and stuff. Didn't even realize it was going to be a comedy at the time. So we played it for real, but and then I didn't hear about it. Didn't hear about it for nothing for nine. I thought I lost the job. They called me back. I get a call back 9 months later.
Oh, wow.
9 months. And I go back, and the next thing I know, it's not a callback. They're actually auditioning actresses to play Beverly. Played the part of Tina, who ended up, Beverly Randolph ended up getting the part, but they were auditioning girls to be with me in the movie. So that's how I found out I got it, is when I went back in for what I thought was a callback, but they were auditioning actresses to be opposite me in the movie.
Okay. That's interesting.
And the reason why it took so long was there was some legal issue with the name, the title. So they had to get that worked out. Tom Fox and Dell Corporation, who produced it, distributed it.
Okay. And as far as your overall experience, what was that like? Just working, on this project. Obviously now, it's a film that's looked upon quite fondly. It's a cult classic. So what was just like your experience working on it?
Yeah, well, working on it was, it was my first big part in a movie, and I've done some stuff before, but nothing this extensive as far as the length of the project. So I was excited. I liked the part. I liked the role. I liked the change from this kid, punk rock kid, and turns into this zombie throughout the movie. So there's a lot of there was a lot of emotional stuff going from that to being a blood brain sucking zombie. So that was a lot of fun. The arc of the character, as it were.
Yeah.
So that was fun. But the actual experience was even looking back to this day, it was one of the great experiences I've ever had filming on anything. And little did I know, and the more I worked, the more I appreciated it, looking back on it, how special it was. I became really close friends with Jimmy Karen, who passed this year. Or last year, I should say, I guess. And a lot of the cast members are still my friends. So we kept in touch, and I see them at a lot of them at the horror conventions I do 3 or 4 a year all over the world. So it's always fun to see them and catch up, and also other people at the conventions as well. But Return of the Living Dead will always hold a near and dear place in my heart for a couple of reasons. The part was great, and also the working experience with all the actors, and of course meeting Jimmy Karen.
And you mentioned that the cast was a good blend of both veterans and a lot of new actors like yourself. What kind of advice or tips did you get from some of the veterans while working on the project?
Gosh, I didn't really give any tips. We just what was great for me, I guess, was Dan O'Bannon, who wrote and directed it, was very collaborative in the process, which was unusual. I come to find out later about writers, because writers usually want you to stick to their words and their images and what they perceive, because they spend a lot of time writing the script, which is understandable. But Dan had the foresight of letting me use my own experiences, and Jimmy used his own experiences. So we did a lot of ad-libbing, and we always talk to him and just kind of got caught up in the moment, which was I come to find out, which was a great generosity on his part to let us do that. And it truly was a collaboration. I mean, I just there was hardly ever a time I heard no. Clue now was on the other hand. Clue, he came in later on, or he got hired at the 11th hour. We had rehearsals for 2 weeks before we started principal photography, which was also another great thing, because it really got all the kids to know each other, and me to work with Jimmy Karen and run our scenes and stuff, so we got really comfortable. Clue was not a part of that because he hadn't been hired yet.
Oh, wow. So
as far as his advice, as far as him giving me an advice, he was dealing with his own stuff, and he had a lot of dialogue, so he was under his own stress. So there was no advice forthcoming. He was just hanging on by his fingernails.
That's cool, though. That, I mean, you guys, it sounds like had a you were pretty free and were able to collaborate, because I'm sure that doesn't happen, like you said, too often in Hollywood. A lot of times you have to stick to pretty close to like what the script is.
Exactly.
And
doesn't happen often.
You mentioned before too, you said in the film, your character Freddy, he has quite the arc, going from new guy on the job and eventually turning into a zombie. Can you talk about just kind of what the transformation process was like?
Well, the scripts aren't shot from the beginning to the end. One isn't usually the first scene up in the movie.
Yeah.
Or that you shoot. It's because it depends on a couple things, of locations, and if you have a scene at a house in the beginning of the movie, and then the same house is at the end of the movie, you shoot the beginning and you shoot the end.
Yep.
So you don't have to, for production reasons, it's cheaper. You don't have to go back to that same location. So what I had to do, and what I do to this day, is like, if there's that kind of arc, or any kind of emotion, just kind of emotional arc. So just kind of make notes in the script, and just kind of follow that, and read the scene before and read the scene after, and just try to convey that the story in that scene at that moment.
What about the so as far as you getting turned into the actual zombie, I'm sure that was probably a good amount of prosthetics and stuff like that. What was that like?
The only prosthetics was at the end, after they throw the acid in my eyes.
Oh, okay.
In the mortuary, and then after that, it's maybe 2-3 scenes. After that, I'm breaking down the hall, crashing down the hall, looking for Tina. I know you're here because I can smell your brain. So I'm looking for her, and so that was a prosthetic. That took about 2 hours, and I still actually have that latex piece. I keep it in a plastic bag so it doesn't degenerate. I think that's one of the only things I got from the shoot, was that, because I was wearing it, I think.
Yeah.
And then everything else was kind of like makeup and just bruising and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. And, something that I always thought was, kind of funny was just that, both you and James Cameron's characters returned for the sequel, which that was just kind of funny. And, having some of the similarities to Freddy, how did you approach playing Joey in part 2? And do you have a favorite scene that was from part 1 or part 2?
Part 2 came about because Return of the Living Dead did very well in Japan. So when they went to go sell part 2, they went to the Japanese distributors because they're trying to get money before they start the principal photography to pay for the filming and stuff. So the Japanese said, yes, we want to be a part of it. We'll give you some money, but we also request that James Cameron and Thom Matthews come back in some way, some forms. So that's how we came back in part 2. Because as you know, if you haven't seen the movie, close your ears. Yeah. Everyone dies at the end. So that's why we came back in part 2. My favorite scene, for me, it's a scene I'm not even in. It's one where we have the old half corpse on the gurney.
Yep.
And after it kills Scuzz, they grab it, tie her down, and the conversation that they have with her is just I thought it was really cool. And that low shot where the spine's going back and forth, that was just I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
No. To have a conversation with a dead person. Not people, brains.
Yeah, I'll say this was, this film was kind of where the whole brain aspect, this is where it kind of...
Oh, absolutely. It's totally part of pulp culture now. I mean, I'll ask people, what do zombies eat? And they go, brains. I said, have you seen Return of the Living Dead? And they say no. I said, because of that movie, that's why you think that. Yeah. I can't tell you. I ask people that all the time at conventions. If they're a Friday the 13th fan and they come up to my table and I ask them that question, what are zombies eating? They say brains. I said, well, you've got to see Return of the Living Dead because that's why you think that. And they don't even know it, which is pretty funny.
That is funny.
But definitely. I mean, I see it all the time on TV shows, and if they have zombies, they're like chasing around wanting brains. It just gets,
and that's where
along that way.
Yeah, where this all originated. And
exactly.
Speaking of Friday the 13th, one of your other iconic roles in the horror genre, Jason Lives, being the third character to portray Tommy Jarvis. How did you prepare for that role?
I went back and looked at 1 through 5. I paid close attention to part 5 because I was preceding John Shepard's Tommy Jarvis. So I looked at it to see if there was some kind of mannerism or something that he did that I could tie into part 6 as the same character. So that's what I kind of did to prepare for it, and just study the script and just use yourself the best you can on any given day.
Yeah. And one of the scenes that I wanted to talk about with you, as far as this film goes, is at the end when you're fighting Jason on the lake. What went into filming that scene? Because that was seems like physical scene.
Yeah, I like it in being physical, the physicality in any role. For that one, I got it. Tom was having trouble. The director was having trouble. I was out by the boat, or trying to get Jason to come down the lake, and Jason was attacking one of the cabins. And he says, "I can't figure out how to get him down to you." I said, "Well, I'll just call him." I said, "Jason, you maggot head!" So that was a little improv we came up with. And if you look, he's attacking Megan and the kids in the cabin, and then he hears me and he turns and makes a beeline for me and jump in the boat and do the gas, and he walks right into the water and do the gas thing. And then some, putting gas all around the boat. I got the chain, I got the rock. I'm ready to go. He jumps on me and get it over his head, and we both go down. He drags me down with him. The underwater stuff we shot in a pool in California. The exterior stuff we shot in Covington, Georgia. And I had never or since have shot anything underwater, which was kind of a cool experience because you're under there and all your gear and stuff, and the camera guy's down there with his, oxygen, and then there's 2 scuba divers, one for CJ and one for myself, and you just hit your chest when you want oxygen every minute or minute and a half, as long as you can hold your breath. And then, you just kind of did the scene down when you're underwater. Can't really see anything because you don't have glasses on or goggles or anything, but you just, it kind of worked. It was really cool.
That's pretty, that sounds pretty interesting. And, Jason Lives is, widely considered one of the favorites in the Friday the 13th franchise. Now, like, in your opinion, why do you think fans connect with this film so much?
I think because they had somebody they emotionally could connect to, and the love story kind of, you saw the softer sides of, it made there was an emotional connection on different levels. One with myself and the sheriff's daughter, Megan. Yeah. And and then also the history with Jason. I dig him up and I feel bad and I'm trying to warn everybody and no one's listening to me. The sheriff's not listening to me, and you can just hear the audience say, "Yeah, he's coming, you asshole! Wait till listen to him." So they get emotionally locked in, and then they're going for the ride. So they have somebody to root for. So I think that was probably one of the reasons why people like it so much. Also, Tom did a great job. I mean, the script is really great. I mean, confined with all the kills that he had to do, and a really, really cool story in there, locked in there. So he did, and there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's it's all in an hour and a half. I mean, I dig him up and put him back down in an hour and a half. So it was pretty tricky. Yeah, he did a good job.
And it's definitely, I mean, it just has like a lot of, I think like, for me, it has like a lot of, fun kills, a lot of action. So yeah.
I mean, the opening sequence just kicks ass. Before the credits even roll. I mean, that whole opening sequence was wrong. God rest his soul, just is so much fun to watch. And the timing of it, me trying to light the match, and starts to rain and the lightning. Oh my God, it just goes on and on.
And
pretty cool.
How would you, or like, have you thought about it all? Like how you would like to maybe see Tommy Jarvis return to like the main franchise if they were, to put out another like Friday the 13th movie?
Yeah, I think they should have just continued with. I mean, whether they use me or not, Part 7 they should just kept following that format. There's a nemesis and a protagonist, and they could have gone crazy with that for a long time, I think, and just developed that whole thing.
Yeah.
And now the game. They came out with the game a few years ago, so now we're getting a whole new fan base of kids who shouldn't see the movie yet, are playing the game. So, and when they get older, they'll see the movie. Hopefully, when they're like 13 or 14.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people have told me they saw when they were 6 and 8. I said, no, that's bad parenting. And I said, let me guess. It was a babysitter or an older cousin or an older brother who made you watch it. They were, yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, for me, for watching, definitely some of these films, it would always be whether it be like staying over a friend's house or something like that, like late at night.
So, right, a babysitter.
Yeah, a lot of times parents weren't involved. But for the game, this was the first time that you did voice acting in your career, correct?
Well, yes, I guess. I mean, you always do some kind of voice work when you're doing a movie. Yep. You have to go in and do some lines and stuff because the sound or an airplane's going over or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty much the same experience.
And what was so was it any different than as far as like a film goes? Just where you're pretty much you have your character.
Same exact thing. They cue up your image on the screen and. There's beeps, and you try and say the words within the lips move, or they don't move, or whatever the cue is.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much the same. It's exactly the same, actually.
Oh, okay. And actually, continuing with the Friday the 13th, you reprise the role of Tommy in Never Hike Alone. What keeps you coming back to this character, and do you think that we will see Tommy again in any other projects soon?
We're trying to make talking to Vincent, we're trying to make a part 2, Never Hike Alone. So that's awesome. In the works. We're talking about doing a teaser right now of like a prequel. Part 2 kind of continues off where the first one left off. We'll take off in the paramedics van. I've got Kyle in there with me, and we end up going to a hospital. And there's some really great treats that he's gotten stored for the fans when we make it. So that'll be a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to doing that. Hopefully this year, beginning of next year.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds like something to look forward. So I can't wait to see that. And now, question for you. You mentioned earlier as far as doing conventions, you do a couple appearances at least every year. Does anything that you see or that fans tell you surprise you at all still when you go to these things?
Every time, yeah. How much I put off doing conventions for a long time, and then finally acquiesced and went to one. I think it was, which one was it? The first time? Well, maybe it was Monster Mania. Don't remember. It was in New Jersey, but almost every time, someone would come up and say how it, what they were doing and how it affected their lives, and a lot of people are makeup artists because of it, and actors, and they just remember exactly what they were. It just made an impression on them, and they're really heartfelt and just really glad to meet me and say thanks, and it's just so much fun to hear that. It's truly heartfelt. Whatever the reason is, it's always really great to hear people talk about the experience, and as an actor, you have no idea how it impacts people's lives or what their impression of it is. So it's really fun for me to hear that stuff.
Yeah, and now, do you have what would you say is the craziest thing that you've seen at a con?
Well, the craziest thing is some guy had me sign his shoulder. And I got slow at my table. I go walking around, and he's getting it tattooed on his arm.
That
was wild. I called all my friends and said, "Oh, you did what? You did what? You did? Oh, you worked on the Mammoth movie? Oh, that's cool. Oh, you worked with De Niro. That's really great." I said, "But do you have your name tattooed on some guy's arm?" No.
That's some dedication there.
So that was probably the wildest thing. A lot of people have my death scene with Beverly Randolph tattooed on him. One guy had the poster art on his back.
Oh, wow.
I mean, his whole back. His whole back.
That's intense.
The fans are so passionate about the movies, the horror genre. It's just crazy. It's so much fun.
Oh, yeah. I would say horror. I would have to say that horror's probably got, I would say, some of the most passionate fans that you could probably find in any genre.
Yep, I'd have to agree.
And you you said that you're a very physical actor. What would you say up to this point throughout your whole career, what was probably the most physically challenging scene to film in your career?
Well, the boat scene was pretty difficult, just jumping around with the fire all around me. But I hyperextended my knee when Jason woke up coming out of the grave.
Oh, wow!
And you have to you shoot a scene several times usually.
Yep.
Usually for me it's 1 to 4 times. Some people 20 times, whatever. But I hyperextended my knee, and it was like So that stuck with me for, I think, about 5 years before it just went away. It just water on my knee. And eventually it just went away. I thought I was going to have to live with it for the rest of my life, but it eventually went away, which I was not really surprised about. And then also Return of the Living Dead, going down the hallway. Could not see anything. Had a little pinhole. Busting down the hall. Tearing shit up. that was coming through the door, over the pew.
Yep.
Hoping the door would break. The last scene where I bust through the attic door, and Don Kalp was up there with Beverly Randolph. The board that was holding the door closed. I kicked it open or hit it open. Tina! And then the thing came down and hit me on the head.
Oh.
Started bleeding. It was the last shot, and it was the last shot of the movie. One of the last shots. My last shot of the movie. Had to go to the hospital.
Jeez.
My head was bleeding and stuff, but everything was fine. So that was the physicality stuff. Just did a Western, so that was a lot of fun. That was the horses and 2 6-shooters, so that was pretty physical stuff. That's always fun. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds like you definitely during your time in the horror genre, you definitely took a beating with some of those films. But it sounds like you had a lot of fun doing
sure.
it. And now kind of a fun question, for you. Would you, if you had to face one of these guys in real life, would you rather take on Jason or zombies from Return of the Living Dead?
Oh, definitely zombies from Return of the Living Dead.
I figured that might be the case, but I wanted to see what you would say.
For sure.
And then, Tom, is there anything else that you want to say to the fans, and what's next for Thom Matthews?
Oh, just want to thank the fans for all the support and the love of the horror genre and stuff. It's just been really fun for me and fun for anybody involved, especially in the 2-3 films that I've done in that genre. And like I said earlier, I've got a Western coming out hopefully this year called Warpath, and then did another movie called Killer Therapy, which is more in the genre of the horror genre. So that should be fun for everyone to watch too.
Awesome.
That's about it.
All right. Well, you guys heard that. Make sure you check out, keep an eye out for those upcoming projects for Tom. Tom, I want to thank you for, again, taking time out of your schedule to come on the show. I really appreciate it.
Sure, Pat. No, my pleasure. Anytime. Hi, this is Thom Matthews from Return of the Living Dead and Friday the 13th. And you're listening to Pop Culture with Pat.